Hello! I just want to say hello to the 5-fish fangirls. No, that's wrong. I want to say hello to the 5-ish fangirls. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Is it? Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
That's
Anyway,
correct.
hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. That's 5 hellos to the 5-fish-ish fangirls. Bye.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode number 10 of the 5-ish Fangirls podcast. Warning, warning, tangents ahead, people. Welcome everyone to the 5-ish Fangirls podcast. We have reached episode number 10, double digits. Can you believe it? I know I can. Woo! Break out the noisemakers and the confetti. So we have got a very special show for this week's double-digit celebration. So let's start off by going around the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany from Taos.
This is Chrissy from Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin.
Cheryl from Kitchener, Ontario.
I'm Rachel from Indianapolis, Indiana, currently recording in Durham, North Carolina.
And I'm Keith from Topeka.
And I'm Glenn from Topeka.
Hey, we've got guests, everybody!
Yay!
And we're excited to be here.
That's good. Yay!
Yes, we have Glenn and Keith from Traveling the Vortex, our brother podcast, have come to help us celebrate our 10th Ennial extravaganza. So, special welcome to them. Sean was invited.
Sean may pop in.
Sean may join later. But we're glad to have these two guys here with us.
Yep. Yeah. We've got some.
Where is it, as you say? He's lost in the vortex right
Yes,
now?
he is trapped in the vortex.
Trapped in the vortex.
Trapped in the vortex.
Yep. So if he escapes, yay. No. But we're gonna jump straight into news, which we actually don't have a lot of this week, which is surprising. So
Next week it'll
next week it'll probably be a smorgasbord, probably. Excuse me. So
first bit of news deals with the TV show Arrow. Charlotte Ross is going to be joining Team Arrow as Felicity's mom. Arrow fans longing for a background story on Emily Brett Rickard's hugely popular character Felicity Smoke will be rewarded when the upcoming third season's 5th episode, Oracle, airs in early November. As part of the glimpse of the super hacker's past, we'll get to meet Felicity's mom, who the CW has just announced will be played by Charlotte Ross. Last seen by genre fans in a violently amorous encounter with a gun-toting, revenge-thirsty Nicolas Cage in Drive Angry, Ross has recently enjoyed stints on Hit the Floor and Glee, but the blonde stunner appears to be especially proud of her latest role. So something to look forward to.
That's a lot of... That's quite the spoilery synopsis. I'm surprised that they even said what episode she's going to be in. But I'm excited because I really like Felicity.
I love Felicity. She's one of my favorite characters.
So she's great.
Yeah.
So,
Still haven't
yay!
watched it. It's on my list.
Oh, I was going to say, you should watch it.
It's some of the best
Started,
television.
but
Yep. If you're annoyed by DC's continual dropping the ball in the film arena with their characters, you should give the Arrow show a try, because they actually do. So they have rights to it, but it's excellent. It gives it, you don't really think. Yeah, Green Arrow isn't one of the more well-known comic book characters, but they do a really good job with this show. So I was surprised by it.
I've heard good things.
Yeah.
I keep trying to get Keith to watch it, but I watched the first half of the first season and just lost interest. Oh, God. It got so good, though. So good.
That's what
season 2 was even better.
another try.
Season 2 was much better.
Yeah, it really was.
Agreed.
And I admit, season 1 had a few characters that people were like, oh, I love this, and I'm like, I love this character, and I was like, really, why? But I think Felicity really sells it. I think because the first couple episodes where I really don't like Laurel. She's just not. I don't know. Something about her just does not impress me. But then when everybody's just so depressed and brooding, like most CW shows, and then Felicity shows up, and you're like, hey, bright ray of sunshine here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it didn't help Laurel's character when they went the direction they went in the first of the second season either. So.
Yeah, that's true. And I just finished watching season 2 of it, and I won't spoil anything, but I was just sitting there going, really, with Laurel, really, just go away.
How many seasons are there?
Just
2 so far.
Starting their
Well, I
third.
can get that done quickly. If I can get all 3 seasons of Once Upon a Time done, I can get that done.
Well, you binged that over
Avatar. I just finished season 2 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh my god!
Have you ever watched that?
Oh my god!
Yeah, that one. Of course, those are only half-hour episodes, but yeah, those go quick.
Yeah.
Everybody's binge watching something except for me. I feel like I'm missing out.
I recommend.
I watched. Oh, go ahead, Keith.
I just finished Continuum season 3. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't watched it.
I think Continuum's Canadian.
Yeah, it is actually set in Vancouver.
Actually,
And
set in
season
Vancouver,
one-
not just
all
filmed
3
there.
seasons.
Huh.
Yeah, all 3 seasons are on Netflix.
Well,
I'll have
there
to
you go.
look at it.
So
Cool. All right. Well, in other news, the soundtrack, and I'm using this with quotation marks, the soundtrack to Guardians of the Galaxy is available for purchase on iTunes and Amazon and all the fun places where you can download albums, but it is the Awesome Mix Volume 1. So if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you know the significance of Awesome Mix Volume 1. And if you see the cover art, you're like, oh yes, that is exactly right. And it's got the songs that are in the film, and several that have, if you've watched the trailers that they've used in the trailers, of course, Hooked on a Feeling, my husband's favorite, Cherry Bomb by the Runaways, I Want You Back by the Jackson 5, Ain't No Mountain High Enough by Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell, the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes, and it's even more than that. I won't go over the entire track list, but yeah, I know both my husband and I, the entire time, we're all like, oh yeah, this is good. Like every piece of retro music that came on, I'm like, yeah, I could listen to this. So
I remember a lot of those songs.
yeah.
Like when they were first run on the radio.
If you're of a certain age, you're going to, these songs are not retro, they are younger, favorites from a younger time, I guess. But us younger folks, they're retro. So.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this, and this is what caught my attention, is there was an article talking about how, this is the first time in so many years that these songs have been back on the charts, I guess, because of Guardians of the Galaxy, because the soundtrack came out and it's been marketed on iTunes. Like it was number 1 on iTunes and number 2, number 1 on digital for iTunes and Amazon, and then number 2 on Amazon's overall CD sales. So it's like, it was just sort of remarkable in that way, and just how successful this movie's been, and that it's translated into, success for these quote vintage retro songs. So anyway.
Well, if it says anything about the songs, when I saw the track listing before I saw the film, the track listing actually ended up online, and I went to my iTunes collection and realized they had all but 3 of the songs. So I made a playlist and bought the other 3 songs that I needed.
Yeah. It, like, Hooked on a Feeling Like when the trailer, the first trailer was released, and you heard that in the trailer, like Hooked on a Feeling suddenly like charted on iTunes because people were going and downloading
I went
it.
out and bought it after it. Now I have it twice.
Yeah, it's a catchy tune.
Actually, yeah, it really is, and people know it even if they don't necessarily know the name or even the artist. They know the song and they know. You know, where it comes from, like the song "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." I always associated that with "Remember the Titans" because that's in that movie. Me too. But I mean, all these songs are songs that my dad listened to growing up, and I'd always go hang out with him when out on the farm and stuff, and he'd just always play those songs on the radio, or he'd have cassette tapes with them on that. So we did a lot of driving out in the middle of nowhere, and that was our music.
I know how that feels. I grew up in the middle of nowhere place.
Didn't Hooked on a Feeling kind of get popular back in the 90s, too, because of Ally McBeal?
Yes, the Dancing Baby.
Baby song.
I thought that was that one.
Yeah. It also had a resurge after David Hasselhoff did a version of it on one of his German albums.
Yeah.
And it went viral here in the States.
My husband showed me the music video for that the other day. Oh my God. It is awful.
Brain bleach. Is it as bad as Doctor in Distress?
It might be worse, actually.
Oh my.
Is anything worse than Doctor in Distress?
It is Hasselhoff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll link to the Hasselhoff version, and you can make your own judgment, I guess.
Oh no, I might be a little too scared of it now.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Bleach.
Stick with the Blue Sweet version of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what's good for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on.
All right. Now, to some Frozen news. Frozen will be getting a sequel in book form. Random House has announced that it's publishing a Frozen chapter book, which is aimed for young readers that will continue the story from the 2013 Disney movie. The first one, Anna and Elsa #1, All Hail the Queen, and its sequel, Anna and Elsa #2, Memory and Magic, will go on sale January 6, 2015. The first two stories will add more detail to the Frozen world and follow Anna and Elsa as they get to know each other as sisters. They've also announced 2 more books would follow later on in the year. No date has been set for that. And they also plan to publish 3 or 4 books every year going forward for who knows how long. The author of these books is Erica David, who has penned licensed books spun off from How to Train Your Dragon, Legend of Korra, and Mr. Peabody and Charmin, which sounds very interesting.
So it sounds like she might know what she's doing then.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting that they're... Oh, go on.
I was going to say, and it also says that the Random House Children's Division President, Barbara Marcus, has compared the new Frozen series to the company's popular Nevergirls series, which is set in Disney's Neverland. I haven't read that series, but I know a little bit about it, and it sounds really neat, and I need to check those out. But
yeah, that's fun.
I was gonna say you can go now, Chris.
Oh, okay. Well, because they bring up this Nevergirl series, and I'll be honest, I haven't heard of this one. I've heard of the Disney Fairy series, which is popular at my library. A lot of kids check those out, but I actually haven't seen this Nevergirls thing. So I'm like, Neverland. So I'm kind of wondering, like, why haven't I heard of this? But so, yay, Frozen's getting a sequel. It's not. I mean, I'm sure a movie's going to come eventually, but maybe they're... No, what do you mean, no?
I'm all for book sequels. I think that's wonderful. I think they should do that. I do not think that any Disney film that is that good, I don't think they should do a sequel, because I just don't ever think they'll be able to do as well.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, look at all those straight DVD sequels they did in the late 90s, early 90s. Those were terrible. Now, granted, they didn't have the production money behind it.
Yeah, they didn't.
You know what? Happily Ever After is happily ever after. It doesn't need a sequel because it was happily ever after.
This was my thing about Frozen, though, is that it was Frozen was based on the Snow Queen, and Elsa is the Snow Queen, but it was Anna's story most of all, and you never really got Elsa's side of the story. It was like Elsa was she was the one that had to be shut away because she was scared of her powers and she was afraid she's going to hurt somebody. But the movie was so focused on Anna's lonely. Anna is the one who's so negatively affected by what's going on with Elsa, and I just felt like I felt a little bit. And I love Frozen. I'm like totally obsessed with it, and I love it. I have the soundtrack. I've played it on loop, and I don't even have kids to blame it on. And I love the heck out of it.
Well, here's the sad thing, is my kids are getting tired of the soundtrack because I listen to it so much. Kids,
yeah. Anyway, I felt like Elsa got a little bit shortchanged in that story. I felt like there was more of her side to tell and we just didn't get it. So that's kind of why I wanted a sequel, and maybe the show Once Upon a Time is going to take on Frozen, and maybe they'll fill that niche for me. I don't know. I mean, they're not doing a direct sequel. They're just saying, what happens when we take these characters, put them in our world. So it's not a sequel of sorts, but maybe as they explore it, and maybe I'll feel fulfilled, but with my desire to know of Elsa a little bit more. Maybe that'll do it, and they won't need a sequel, and I'll change my mind. But I actually kind of want one, just because I want to know what Elsa thought in all this, or how does she come to grips with her powers? I mean, now she feels accepted by her sister, and true, an act of true love thaws a frozen heart, and love conquers all, happily ever after. But still, there's a lot of stuff to sort through, and maybe it's too heavy for a kids movie. I don't know, but that's just my take on it.
That's certainly the best argument I've heard for it.
Well, thank you.
It'd be surprising if they didn't make a sequel, considering how much money it made.
Yeah,
that's the sad thing. Yeah. There you go. That hit the nail on the head. That's why.
That's the realistic.
Yeah.
Disney
and I hear you. I hear you about the crappy late '90s Disney sequels, because they could never get the production values. They could never get the same voice actors, and the music was just not there. So I mean, I hear you about that, about how it couldn't work. But I feel like, especially with Pixar, if they could,
same heart.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like, I don't know with the addition of Pixar. I mean, I know Pixar's not directly involved in this brand, and maybe I'm totally off the wall here, but I mean, they've managed to put out some good sequels, like with Toy Story and Monsters University. I quite liked it. I never saw Cars 2, but I feel like maybe they could do it this time.
Well, there's certainly something to say for that, Chrissy, because John Lasseter now is in charge of animation, and he came straight from Pixar. Yeah. And that's why Pixar was so strong and had such great stories, is because John Lasseter was at the helm. And I think with him over Disney animation as a whole now, that certainly is a benefit, and does kind of qualify the idea that they could put out a good sequel to anything that they do. Now, Pixar hasn't had a run of successful sequels because, with the exception of Toy Story, I don't think the other two sequels did all that well. So it'll be curious to see if they can do it with something that was as huge as Frozen. Of course, we are getting ahead of ourselves because this is just a book right now.
Yeah.
That's true. We did say tangent, so.
Yes.
Well, it's because you've got Keith and I on the show. So. Yeah. When you invite Keith and I on the show, you're really, really, really doomed to have some tangents.
Well, that's what we wanted. So.
Okay, good.
There you go. You're fulfilling your purpose. Solved.
Wish fulfilled.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now we got to bring it down just a little bit. Yeah.
Some sad yet happy news, I guess. Bittersweet.
Yes.
Which is that J.K. Rowling writes a letter to a teenage girl who survived the shooting, and she wrote it in the voice of Dumbledore. Purple ink and everything. So, 15-year-old Cassidy Stay's family had been the victim of a home shooting in Texas last month. Cassidy was the only survivor of the shooting. At a memorial service for her family, Cassidy quoted Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Happiness can be found in the darkest of places if one only remembers to turn on the light. A Facebook page was set up in hopes of getting Cassidy to meet J.K. Rowling. While Rowling has not yet met Cassidy, she did send a letter from Dumbledore to Cassidy, the contents of which have not been made public, as well as a wand, an acceptance letter to Hogwarts with a school supply list, and a signed copy of The Prisoner of Azkaban. There's also a GoFundMe page that's been set up for Cassidy if people want to donate to that. So
yeah, we'll put a link to that in the
Yeah.
So I was reading the article, and the only reason she survived is because she played dead after a bullet grazed her skull.
Yeah, I remember when the shooting happened, and it was on like the national news, and it was just I hadn't realized that somebody actually survived that. So yeah, that's terrible that happened to her. But I mean,
So,
she's being so brave. So you know,
it was her uncle came in one day and.
Yes, her uncle was looking for his estranged wife, and because his wife was like the sister of either her mother or father, and they were hiding her and her kids from the uncle, who was apparently abusive and all that, and he came looking for them, and they refused to let him see them and
tell him where she was.
Yeah.
So they shot them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it said, I also saw that after the uncle left, the girl called 911 and told them that he was probably going to go to her grandparents' house next, so the police were able to catch him before he could do anything else. But and I remember hearing about this and that she had, and about the memorial service when it had happened, and you know, people were all like, "Oh my gosh, she quoted Dumbledore in her remarks at the thing." But she also, like, there's a video clip of her at the memorial service, and just how poised and how courageous, I guess, is the best thing you could call this girl. Is how she has been through this whole thing, and I really applaud J.K. Rowling for doing this. Like, Rowling's done a lot of charity work on a grand scale, and there were people that wanted Rowling to meet with Cassidy, but this is the next best thing, and so I don't think she's ever really done anything on a personal, individualized level. To my knowledge, she may have done, and I just don't know about it. But yeah, so there's kind of there's a silver lining to this, and it's good. There's one message in the Harry Potter books, like, these terrible things do happen, but there are still good things that can come out of it, and so, and definitely our thoughts and prayers go out to Cassidy and her extended family. And like we said, there is a GoFundMe page, and we'll put a link to that. And a lot of people have donated with all the news that this has been getting, which is remarkable and fantastic. But certainly can and should.
Yeah.
And we encourage people to do so if you can. Anyway, in further news, which is a little frustrating.
Touching upon something we mentioned.
Last week I went kind of off on a tear about this and about San Diego Comic-Con threatening litigation against Salt Lake Comic-Con over the use of the name Comic-Con. Well, San Diego has formally filed the lawsuit against Salt Lake Comic-Con, and I, just reading the article in our local paper here in Salt Lake, they filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court in California. It says seeking both damages and an injunction. The suit alleges Salt Lake's use of Comic-Con in its name is trademark infringement and constitutes a false designation of origin, confusing the public into thinking that the two conventions are affiliated, which I think is ridiculous, but whatever. So, let's see. So in response, Comic-Con co-founder and chief marketing officer Brian Brandenburg says of the lawsuit says it's pretty aggressive. We feel like they don't have a basis for this. We thought there might be some more ammunition with a formal lawsuit, but they still don't have a leg to stand on. So basically, they've just rehashed the same old complaints, and they've talked to other Comic-Cons in the country, and basically their other Comic-Cons, their response is just they roll their eyes and saying, oh yeah, they've done this before. So anyway, it's just, apparently geeks can't get along. But I do have to say, our local political cartoonist actually took this on, and there's a really funny cartoon from this guy as Pat Bagley, and he's been doing these locally for years. But his cartoon about this, there's two sets of cosplayers in this cartoon. We'll put a link to it in the show notes.
Oh, I've seen that.
You probably have, yeah. Yeah, and there's two cosplayers. They're both cosplaying Batman and Robin, and one says San Diego Comic-Con. He's kind of, a short, chubby guy, and Robin, and his Robin is, the tall, lanky, stereotypical nerd sort of thing, and it's saying, careful, Robin, these people are imposters. And the Salt Lake Comic-Con, Batman and Robin, there's this kind of stocky, muscly guy, and Robin is cosplayed as a very pretty girl. And they're just looking at him like, what are you doing? So it's really funny.
I was funny looking at that earlier.
So anyway, it's just, Salt Lake Comic-Con, they do a really good job. They've handled this well, I feel like, and I think it's going to be fine in the end. I just wish they didn't have to spend all this time and money on lawyers instead of getting guests and scheduling going for Comic-Con, which is in less than a month, and they said, everything's going to go forward as planned, so this doesn't affect anything.
Salt Lake's not the only one that uses the words Comic-Con either, and
no.
If they do rule against Salt Lake on this, it's going to hold ramifications for everybody.
Yeah,
that's what they said.
Every single Comic-Con out there.
Yeah, and they even compiled a list of all the conventions that use Comic-Con in the name, and there were well over 100. And there were a bunch in the United States, some in Canada, and some in in Australia, New Zealand, and
Vancouver, Regina. That I know that there's at least there's Toronto Comic-Con, which is in March, which is separate from Fan Expo Canada.
Yeah.
But I've never been to Toronto Comic-Con. I've only ever been to Fan Expo. So, but it's
you guys,
it's the same people that I think run both of those. But Fan Expo's called that because it's for fans of everything. It's like anime, sci-fi, horror. So it started out as a comic book convention 20 years ago. But it quickly grew, and within a few years, they renamed it Fan Expo because to represent the wider range of what they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like I know when I first heard
most cons would have the word Comic-Con in the title, so people know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's in there, which makes a big deal, I guess. But nobody else uses the hyphen because that's what they have trademarked. But I don't know. They're being ridiculous. They're being stupid, and
they're not jealous. They're being greedy and want money.
Yeah.
Yes,
pretty much.
Exactly.
Pretty much. I don't think anything's going to happen bad, or anything bad's going to happen with it. I'm just sitting here rolling my eyes going, really? But, oh well.
I'm shaking my head right along with you, Chrissy.
I know. I guess I'm just annoyed because they're coming after my hometown con, and I feel like I get a little protective of these things, even though I'm not involved. I just like the con, and I like having one close by.
It'll all get straightened out. I'm sure.
Anyway, let's all get along and let's play nice.
Yes. So, well, that's it for news for this week, at least as far as general news. We may touch on some other news-ish stuff here, but we're going to jump into this week's topic, and the reason that the guys are here is not only the fact that it's our 10th episode, and we're very excited about that, but
happy anniversary, by the way.
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yay.
And thanks to all our listeners who have stuck with us for 10 episodes.
Yeah.
We're sorry.
It's a good show. You guys put on a great podcast, and everybody should be privileged to listen to you.
Well, thank you.
Aww. That was sweet of you.
I'm blushing.
Yeah, me too. Warm fuzzies are making my cheeks hurt. But big, on top of it being our 10th anniversary, is we all have something in common, and something that has been in the forefront of our minds and is going to take over our lives here in literally 2 weeks, is Doctor Who is coming back.
Yay!
The world
confetti, fireworks.
Yes, the world tour has officially kicked off. I think right now they're all in Seoul, South Korea, I think, at the moment.
That is correct.
Yes. But so I'm so excited the Doctor Who is coming back that it's hard to believe that it's so close to coming back. So
Well, like yesterday, or was it the day before, when they were all in Cardiff and all these things were coming down the pipe, it felt like Comic-Con again, because during Comic-Con we're getting excited for all these other things and stuff, and I kind of missed Doctor Who, but now we had all these interviews and pictures of Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman and Stephen Moffat meeting fans, and all Cybermen in the streets and Daleks and all these pictures and videos and stuff coming in and interviews, and it was so. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's right. This is
it's like Christmas.
This is kind of the doldrums of the year whenever San Diego Comic-Con's over, and it seems like geekdom kind of slows down. But we've been fortunate to have Guardians of the Galaxy having a huge August opening, and that being such a geek thing. And then right on the horizon is, the first episode of Series 8. And so, as Chrissy was alluding to, we have all of this wonderful thing we've been seeing come out since the World Tour started, and it's really exciting, and it's, again, another great time to be a Who fan.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like they're making the big spectacle again, like, because we had all that last year at the 50th anniversary, and it's funny, but it doesn't. I thought I would kind of feel a little fatigued by all this because they're doing the cinema showings and the worldwide tour, but actually I don't. I actually feel like this was a really good move on their part to build up the hype around a new Doctor and the TARDIS interior. Well, it's the same, but it looks different and just a different tone of story, like they've been alluding to for so long. I mean, when they went from David Tennant to Matt Smith, we had such a different tone, and it took a while to get used to, but I feel like this is getting us ready for that change, and so I'm really excited about it.
Well, I think it's really far enough removed from the 50th.
Yeah, and I think it's also a smart move to kind of gets Peter out there into the public and lets the fans get to kind of know him a little bit, and those that might be a little nervous about this new guy coming in to play the role, it helps kind of ease their concerns a little bit.
Yeah. I know it does for me, because I'm one of those people that jumped on well after the show had returned. So this is the first time that I've had a Doctor regenerate on me, quote unquote, in real time, and starting out fresh with a new Doctor.
Yeah,
so it's I'm very excited about Capaldi, but at the same time I'm like, this is the first time I've experienced this drastic of a change in the show. Along with everybody else.
Concern and trepidation of, is this still going to be what I liked before?
Yes.
Even though it will be, it's still the unsureness of it is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and also, because when Capaldi was announced, anyway, when he was announced, and everyone in Britain knew who he was, and Doctor Who fans, especially those of us who are really steeped in it kind of knew who he was, but most people, but people from, you know, international fans were like, who is this guy? And yeah, like you said, getting him out there, getting him, you know, getting people used to him and that kind of thing. Because we've seen all these different casting announcements, and it's like, you know, people in Britain are excited about it, about these different people, but, you know, most of them I've just been kind of like, oh, that's nice. Who's that? And I can't think of any off the top of my head because I don't remember their names because I've never heard of them.
I don't know who this Fox's person is, but apparently she's a singer, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, oh, that's nice. I'm glad you're going to be in it.
Yeah.
And it also helps that Jenna Coleman is still around, and I really loved Clara in the story, and I love what they do with her. So, you know, she's still there. So there's still that familiar face.
Right. And Jenna has joined Twitter. She just joined Twitter the other day when they her first couple tweets were her reaching Korea. So at least Jenna is now part of the Twitter universe, so you can go follow her. So
yeah, and everybody play nice, please.
Yes,
please.
Don't scare her off.
I had a chance to read the Entertainment Weekly article that they did on Doctor Who. Kind of a bit of a rehash, but the thing that I found interesting was Peter Capaldi was actually authored the part of the Eighth Doctor for the Eighth Doctor movie, but he turned it down.
Wow.
And I never knew that before. I was like, whoa, interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either until I read it.
Yeah, I think I heard an interview with him talking about that, and he was like, yeah, I didn't know, he didn't know if he could do it justice, like he was nervous about it, and because he is such a fan, and I think that's another thing that's helped me especially. I have no doubt he's going to do a good job, and you don't necessarily need to be a fan of Doctor Who to play the Doctor before you start. I mean, look at Matt Smith. You know,
I was going to say
he's a child of the wilderness years, but he became a fan. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, David Tennant was a fan before as well, but you know, Capaldi is a fan from day one, pretty much. He said he watched William Hartnell and all those early days, and you just see it. He just has a love for the show, and even today I saw on Tumblr, someone posted that he had drawn. Just like the end of last month, he had drawn some, someone had written to him like a fan letter, and he written back, and he had actually drawn a picture of the Third Doctor, and sent it back to him, and signed it as part of his, thank you for writing to me sort of thing. I'll have to link to it, and it's like way good. He's like and there was another picture of I guess it was Cybermen or something. And he signed it, Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor. And I was like, and it was dated the end of July 2014. And I'm like, that is so cool. Like, the more I see of him, the more I just love him. So I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, apparently he's a big fan of the Cybermen from Mondos. So you can't go wrong there.
Well, you would say that. And I guess he actually got in an argument with Stephen Moffat over what the better Cybermen were, and I was like, wouldn't that just be a fun conversation?
Be a fly on that wall.
Yeah. Oh yes. Two middle-aged Scottish men arguing over Cybermen. I think that is just awesome.
And then going down to the pub for a pint.
Yes.
Or arguing over a pint.
Yeah,
that too.
Yeah. So.
And then it gets more heated the more they have.
Yeah. So.
Oh, the Doctor and the showrunner. Mm-hmm. I want that fanfic.
So
Since Sean will be here, he can write it.
Yeah.
We'll get him on it. That'll be his penance for not showing up tonight.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody... I don't know how much you guys have been paying attention to the stuff that's been coming out of the World Tour. I personally have been avoiding it like the plague for fear of spoilers. So I know there's been like interviews. Like I think there's an interview with Capaldi on some morning talk show, an interview, but I know that the BBC's also released some clips and stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to watch. So how closely has anybody been watching paying attention to the stuff that's coming out of the world tours? Anybody?
Well, I did see that interview with Lizo Mazimba, who's the entertainment reporter for BBC. I only remember him because he used to report on Harry Potter stuff back in the day. And I did see the clips, and I won't go into too many details, but there was one of the clips, I will say, it just had me howling with laughter. Just how, I mean, it's kind of a dry humor, but it was just so funny to me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is my doctor. He's in the trailers, he looks real scary and spiky and really intense kind of thing. But there was just this little moment. There was like just this little sparkle, and it's like, yeah, it's still there. He's still going to be, the joyous, fun doctor, just with a little bit of. I've described him as spiky a little bit, and I think he strikes a nice balance with that. Prickly, yeah. I don't want to use dark because dark's been overused. It's one of those things I'm like, can we just banish that from the vocabulary for forever? Which the media will not. They pick their favorite little buzzwords and say, this is what we're going to describe it as, so we don't have to think too hard about it.
Chris, I really like you for some reason.
Yeah,
that's exactly my feelings on it.
I was afraid I was insulting you because you guys work in media.
No, that's you're exactly right. Is the media's cottoned on this whole dark thing, and I've vented my frustration on that a few weeks ago on our podcast. But I think the problem is we're wanting it to take a dark tone, or there's people that are wanting it to take a dark tone, and I certainly think it will be. And I think the thing that reassured me the most is I saw it might have been the same one with Capaldi. And he was talking about how, yes, they're taking kind of a darker approach, a darker turn with it, but it's also still meant to be fun and funny, and there's jokes, and he said that straight out. And so that was really reassuring to me, and that was all I needed to kind of maybe wipe away any sort of trepidation I had about the upcoming series.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like they want it to couch it in, it's dark, because there are so many successful movies and TV shows and reboots and things that are going dark, I guess Batman, the most recent Batman trilogy, or even the upcoming Batman vs. Superman, where it's all dark and it's gritty, and that all of a sudden denotes good storytelling because, we're giving them these broody, dark, scary backstories. It's kind of like, but they're supposed to be fun too. I mean, that's what I love about Doctor Who is, you can have these heavy storylines, but there's still that little. There's always a joke. There's always something fun, and I always think. Right now, I just was thinking of the episode "The Rings of Akaten," and that's the first time Clara goes anywhere in the TARDIS. Well, Clara Prime, however you want to say it, and she's just like she's on this new planet, and she's seeing this wonderful, beautiful landscape for the first time, and she's looking out at space. The Doctor's looking at her reaction, and he's getting a thrill from seeing her reaction to seeing this planet for the first time, standing on an alien planet for the first time, and he gets a thrill out of this, and that's just how he is, and he wants to show off what he can do, and it's sort of this childlike wonder that he has, even though he's 2,000 years old and he's made mistakes and blah blah blah, but he still has that sparkle, I guess, for lack of a better word, about him. So,
and anybody that thinks that Chrissy, you're absolutely right. Yeah, but anybody that thinks that, and they certainly do, that good storytelling has to be dark, they could just turn to a certain movie that came out last weekend that was lots of fun and not dark at all, and it broke August records, and it's doing phenomenal, and it's a great little fun story with a good story and a lot of heart.
Yes, has a talking raccoon and a talking tree.
That's right.
And it's the cutest darn thing ever, even though the raccoon could probably rip your throat out.
That's the beauty of it, is it's cute and vicious at the same time.
And if they weren't trying to keep a certain rating, he probably would have been much more foul-mouthed.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, no, I agree, Chrissy. I think that as long as the heart's still there, they can go as dark as they want with it. It's still got to be Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will be. Correct.
Yeah.
Just from what little I've seen.
I have no problem with darker. Heck, my doctor's a 6th Doctor, and people complained his era was too dark. So
that's a good point.
And even so, there was. I mean, Colin Baker still had a lot of, especially in the Trial of the Time Lord series. There was still that twinkle. There was still that little nod, wink, wink, sort of thing. Even though he did get, and even in Big Finish, I mean, he's just a big teddy bear.
He is.
You love him, even though, I mean, don't threaten his companions because he will kill you.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, talk about someone with a lot of heart and a lot of joy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think, like you said, dark is has been so overused, but I think you could probably apply that to at least 1 or 2 stories from each Doctor's era. Easily. Yeah. You know, and pick something where it's like, oh, I can't believe they did that for the time, which, you know, now we're all like, oh, that's nothing. But, you know, at the time, I'm sure people are like, oh, can you do that on television? You know, you're going to scare the children more than just a Dalek coming up on the screen and sending a child to behind the sofa. But,
yeah.
So.
Well, Mary Whitehouse certainly thought a lot of stuff was dark at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's true. She was always.
If she was alive today.
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up, Rachel, because I saw this. I think it was last year. It was this. What do they call them? A gift set on Tumblr with, you know, the animated GIFs. Mm-hmm. And someone had taken the quote from Hyde, that the one girl, I can't remember her name, but she tells Clara, don't trust him. You know, she tells her, don't trust the Doctor because he has a sliver of ice in his heart. And somebody had taken that quote and they put it on these different images, and the first part of the image was it was a lot, like for every Doctor there were 11 of them, and there was a scene with each Doctor like being, you know, happy and laughing and, you know, being the kind friendly Doctor, and then it would switch and it would go, the colors would darken a little bit, and then there would be a scene where the Doctor is violent or yelling or something is wrong. And I think that's just the Doctor, is like he'll be this happy-go-lucky person one minute, and then the next he's, you know, he can be scary and he can be violent. He's not generally a nice person, but, you know, maybe that's just how people are. Is you see that contrast, you see those dichotomies, and that's where the good storytelling comes in. Is it, you have all these different facets of the character, and you can't just describe him as, you know, the hero or the villain, and, you know, there's all these different, you know, moral shades of gray, and everybody tries to pigeonhole these characters into one, you know, into a short little sentence, you know, the elevator pitch, you know, little 5-second description, which, you know, is good for that kind of scenario, but, you know, over the long term, you want more depth to it.
Yeah.
And I think the Doctor has had that.
That's just it. We'd all certainly get very bored if the Doctor wasn't different levels in his character, and I think that every incarnation of the Doctor has, or every actor that's played the Doctor has been able to bring those different levels, and so it's just the level of humor to seriousness or humor to drama is always going to be certainly tipped the scale slightly one direction or the other, and even dark and light, but you're always going to have that balance that's going to, you know, kind of back and forth a bit too.
And just like River had said too, and I think The Good Man Goes to War about well, where I was born, or one of the soldiers, like where I was born, the doctor had this meaning, healer, but it also meant warrior.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. They bring that up.
So, is there... I mean, depending on how spoiler-free you have or haven't been leading into these last few weeks, is there anything that maybe you've heard about that you're like, ooh, I'm really looking forward to that? Or maybe there's something that maybe you necessarily haven't heard about but would like to see with the new series?
One thing that I saw that I think is going to be really neat is it sounds like it's going to be much more like Series 7, and the fact of whatever big story arc is going to happen is going to only take up a very small amount of each episode. So we're pretty much getting standalones. And that, I think that was one of the great things about Series 7 is so much of that was standalone episodes. Even with the Clara mystery, it was very small in the background. And so I think it's kind of neat that we're going back to that style of storytelling.
And Keith, I think I was going back through some of our old episodes, and I had realized that it might have been even pre-season 7 that we talked about how we actually were kind of longing for a step away from the serialized season with the underscoring story arch, and we were actually looking forward or saying we would like to see some of the next series. And again, this was back before Series 7, saying we'd like to see a series that did that. And so I saw the same thing this week, and it kind of flashed back, and I thought, oh, that's kind of refreshing that they're actually kind of answering that want for us that we had over a year ago.
Well, and it makes it harken back to the classic series in a bit too, because so many of those, there's not a lot that carry over with the through line. It's just there's 4 episodes and that's a story, and then you go on, and so it's kind of it makes it feel like it's going back to its roots more that way.
And that kind of made me think of I saw this quote. I don't know when I saw it. It was about a week or so ago, and that they were saying that television is the new serialized novel. So, like, what I mean by that is, back in the old days, you'd have authors would write chapters that were published in magazines or newspapers and things. Like, I know Edgar Rice Burroughs did this with Tarzan and John Carter and things like that. And so, so now that we have those collected in books, but they started out as these, every week you get the next installment, and now T's kind of taken that on where you have their next adventure. Radio, I guess, was in the middle there too. So and Doctor Who is a good example of that, especially this past with Series 7, where they had all the standalone things, and they said, oh, we're going to make these, they're mini movies basically, and they're these great big things. You have a movie poster for each one, or a pseudo movie poster, quote unquote, and each one is a standalone story. And it's kind of interesting that they're taking that, and I do like that they're experimenting with different ways of storytelling. I mean, if you want to experiment, Doctor Who's the place to do it, definitely. And
especially considering like post Lost and even before that, so many shows jumped onto let's do a serialized type storytelling instead of episodic, where they were trying to capture that magic. And so many shows are that way now, where they used to be more episodic. And so it's kind of neat that Doctor Who is buck trend.
Well, yeah. And I think that unfortunately television went that route because they decided that they could be lazy, because you wouldn't have to write as compelling stories to get viewers back every week if you basically had to be there to find out where they were in the story. So it'll be kind of refreshing to go to something where we realize we have to write really great stories in order to make the viewers come back, as opposed to letting them hang at the end of an episode so that they will come back next week.
Yeah, and it makes each episode stand on its own, which, I mean, I like it both either way, but, I guess it's more of a challenge to the writer, especially where you have to, and writers of Doctor Who have talked about this before on DVD interviews and stuff like that, where they have a set amount of characters they have to introduce, do something with, and then get rid of by the end, whether that's ending their story, not necessarily killing them off, but so it's a little bit more of a challenge for them. Then they don't have to say, oh, well, I'll tell that story, I'll tell that backstory in a later episode. Well, this character doesn't have a later episode for you to go back to, so you better do it now.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is really just, like I said, this is the first time I've had a doctor regenerate on me, along with everybody else. And I'm interested to see the relationship between him and Clara.
Mm-hmm.
Because of
definitely
the Clara's relationship with the Doctor, not just in that incarnation, but with every incarnation. And the fact that, Gallifrey may still be out there. I mean, we may be headed towards Gallifrey, and, what she's done for the Doctor, how that'll affect the relationship, and his knowledge now that, he may be able to go home. Now, whether he wants to go home, that's another question. But the fact that the possibility is there, is it? I'm fascinated with where they could potentially take this. Whether they're, how Clara's going to react to the Doctor regenerating, because we know that regeneration's a crapshoot on what it does to the Doctor. For that first episode or so, and then also the aftermath from Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor, and he's got this companion, and he's had these companions since the series restarted, and he's mentioned Gallifrey every now and then, and the Time War and all that, but it's always been this thing in the back of his mind that, I killed everybody, and that's horrible, and I have this weight on my shoulders, and has caused him to carry on in a certain way. And now it's all like, I didn't kill everybody. Crap, now what do I do?
Well, and it's almost like, because people are joking, he brought back Gallifrey and the Time Lords, but the Time Lords were all jerks in the classic series anyway. Yeah. Why does he feel so bad about it? But it's not. I mean, it's sort of like, when you're a teenager and you're home and you're like, I can't wait to get out of this place, go to college or get a job or get my own place and things, and then you move and then you leave and you're like, I miss home, and you remember all the good things you did have. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what. In the new series, where especially the 10th Doctor, where he's been all, I feel so guilty because of this. I blew up my home planet and all these things, and now he has a chance to go back and he made amends for that. And I think that's just really clever writing and a really interesting twist, and just a good way to keep that going. Mm-hmm. And then also from Clara's point of view, it's been talked about, like, she's been through the Doctor's timeline. She knows about regeneration. She knows that, he's going to be fine. But I kind of liken it to, where I'm a relatively new fan, and maybe Keith, you can chime in on this, or anybody other than Glenn, because Glenn can chime in too. But
I know what you mean. I've been around a while.
No, Glenn, you be quiet.
But like we know theoretically, like, he's going to be fine. This is what the show does. But at the same time, we're like, okay, but yeah, we know. Like me going back and watching the Caves of Androzani, and my doctor, he's regenerating, and this is so sad. But then again, I like stuff that the 6th Doctor's done, and the 7th, and the 8th, and all the way through. But I don't know what's coming with the 12th Doctor, and I feel like Clara's probably in that same boat where she's like, I know. This incarnation of the Doctor did this or that, but, she's learning it the same way the rest of us are. Like, theoretically, she knows it's going to be okay, but in actuality, she has no clue, just like the rest of us. And I think that's a really interesting way. Like, they always talk about how the companion is, the audience proxy in the show. Well, now she's even more the audience proxy because she knows she knows about the things that happened to the Doctor's past lives because she was there and she was in his timeline. And I think that's really, who would have thought of that?
She doesn't seem to remember a whole lot of that.
Yeah.
It's
one thing to know things conceptually and understand them, and then it's another thing to live through them.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and I do wonder, if at some point we may get more from the aftermath of that and find out what exactly Clara, because we had Name of the Doctor and then jumped right into the 50th, and we had that storyline, and then we jumped right into Time of the Doctor and the 11th Doctor regenerating. So we really haven't had an opportunity to find out what is going on in Clara's head after Trenzalore and going into the Doctor's time stream. What does she remember, if anything, and if she what she does remember, is it good, is it bad, is it is she completely screwed up in the head now? We don't know.
It's funny. It's funny that you bring that up, though, because I think I've always looked at it from this point of view, and maybe I'm making presumptions that other people have questions, but I kind of assumed this. But my impression was when she jumped into the Doctor's time stream, she was split across all of his different timelines. So my impression was always the Clara that came out of that with the 11th Doctor is the Clara that went to that recent time stream. That Clara was split amongst all his time streams, so she wouldn't have any memory, as she didn't have any memory when she was with the 11th Doctor in the Christmas Snowman. Yeah. And so any Clara that essentially, and Oswald, any Clara that had splintered from that, our Clara Prime, would have no memory of anything else going on except for where they were cognitively. So my impression was she knew she split, she was confused, but we saw a lot of the different events with Clara, essentially a splintered Clara, that when she came out of there, she wouldn't have remembered visiting any of those timelines because that was kind of where she had landed. But maybe I'm looking at that differently because I hadn't thought of that until you brought that up, Rachel. I kind of felt like that story was over and they had kind of addressed that. But now that you say that, I can kind of see where maybe a splintered Clara still retains all of that she experienced all across those timelines. So that's an interesting point. And I guess maybe they do need to address that if that wasn't made clear to anybody but me, and I just presumed that.
Right. Well, I would like to know. Oh. I would like to know if she remembers, and if she doesn't, she may not remember the lives, but I would think that she remembers walking into the Doctor's time stream. But even in Day of the Doctor, when she bursts into the tower with the unlocked door, and she reintroduces them. You're like, oh, there's three of you, and she's like, yeah, you met this one before, and she's like, do you remember? And she's like, kind of, and that's all we get. It's a one,
But that would have been the War Doctor he was referring to, and then because Matt was there, and that's where they left from, she would have remembered that instant. In my opinion, she wouldn't necessarily have remembered.
But no, he said you met them, meaning he was talking about both Ten and the War Doctor, and she said sort of. So
that's a good point. I forgot about that.
And there's another point where she says, "I've seen all of your faces."
Yeah, she does. At the end of Name of the Doctor, she says, I've seen all the faces, but I don't remember that one, and that's when the War Doctor turns around and that kind of thing. So she does remember that.
She does remember from at the end of Name of the Doctor. She does say she remembers seeing all his past self.
Yeah, that's right. She does say that.
Yeah.
And her quote.
Then we have to assume that's the one that he takes out.
And then when she responds to his question, "Am I a good man?" She's got to have some memory, but she hasn't made a determination yet. Or maybe she's seen of the previous doctors to tell him, hey, yes, you are, or no, you're not. Or maybe she's still undecided, or she doesn't want to scare him into making a choice and just letting him play out and be his own quote-unquote person and not have but still have some of that history of what's gone before its regenerations.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the theory, where she doesn't want to play too much into the regeneration part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because it's like, she just doesn't know that what's this new doctor going to do. She knows what previous doctors would have done, but and maybe that's playing a part of it, because watching that bit in the trailer, and she kind of has that look on her face like, I don't know, I kind of get the feeling, and maybe this just goes down to Jenna Coleman's acting ability, and props to her, because I think she's fantastic. It's just in that moment, she's just kind of like, she's used to knowing what the doctor's going to do. Because she's been in his life like no other companion has. Like, she's seen it all from beginning to end. And now she's faced with this new one, and it's kind of unsettling to her, because she's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know if you're a good man or not. I mean, I would know it from one of your past selves, but not you. You're kind of an unknown quantity, and maybe you will be, maybe you won't. And I think, and that's going to be an interesting dynamic to look at in the new series, in this new upcoming series, of where that's going to go. And I'm sure it's going to be fine, and I'm sure the relationship's going to be just, it's going to go off all right. But just in that one little moment, and that is probably what they're going to have to. And I think they will. I think they will address that, or maybe I'm just wishing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it interesting from that perspective, though, that he's asking her because she has some familiarity with his past lives, but in the same token, he has as much familiarity with his past lives. So it's an interesting, it's an interesting element, because, and we presume it's probably because he certainly is asking because he doesn't remember. So I wonder if that has something to do with the regenerative process. And that's part of the reason why he's asking her. But on the flip side, he's asking somebody that's had almost as much involvement with his life as he has, and he's having to ask her. So that's kind of interesting, too.
I think I have a slightly different take on that question and conversation. It almost, to me, seems like he's asking after some sort of adventure where he did something questionable. And so he's pondering, am I a good man for what I did? And can I continue being a good man? So that's the thing with the trailer, is you don't know the context of whatever the clip's around.
That's very true.
That's
we
the
could be
nature
getting into a
trailers,
huge
too,
we could be getting into a huge philosophical debate and being like we find out like, oh, it really wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, that's a good point, Keith, because I don't think I had looked at it from that angle as well. But that's a good point to point out there.
And I also wonder how much, if at all, the fact that it's a new regeneration cycle will play into the storytelling.
Yes.
I bet it will, yeah.
Probably.
I mean, well, they're not going to just leave that dangling, I'm sure. That's a new concept that's been tinkered with, especially in the classic series, when he's been offered that opportunity before, and with the Master being offered that opportunity. So it's something we've always kind of seen in the past. But it's a new concept for new fans, and it's something that kind of broadens the storytelling, and you're able to tell more stories with that, not only because now you have 10 more actors that can play the part, or 12 more actors that can play, or 11 more actors that can play the part, but you also can expound on it and explain, are there ramifications of 12 more lives? Is there repercussions of 12 more lives? So yeah, no, that's a good point.
And bringing that up, I just thought of this, like, and maybe in the expanded universe they have, but we've seen the Time Lords offer to give new regeneration cycles, but have we ever seen anybody actually take it? And this is the first time that I'm aware of.
At least I kind of assumed that the Master did get a new regeneration cycle when they pulled him out of the Eye of Harmony.
I'm sure the War as well.
Oh, yeah. Although that was like they went back in time and sent the drumming to his
there was
child.
a whole lot of mess in that whole storyline in general.
Yeah, so there was that. So I don't know. It's like we've never had a chance to explore this. So yeah, there's a lot of different angles they could take this and see. What does having a new regeneration cycle do to you, if anything, and how does that affect you? So yeah, that would be an interesting way to look at it if they choose to go that route.
Clearly, if the Master got a new set of regenerations and he ran off to the end of the universe and the end of time in order to hide, so we don't really know what kind of ramifications he did.
And
or even how many
into his
cycle he was when he was Yana.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. That's true. There's just a lot about the Master we don't know, and maybe it's better that way. Although Big Finish has tackled a lot of stuff with the Master and Gallifrey and all those things. But if you haven't listened to the Gallifrey audios, they're quite good.
I've listened to season 1 because I have it on CD, but I don't have the money right now to get any of the rest of it.
Big Finish. Making my wallet hurt. One audio at a time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll find out in at least somewhat in 2 weeks.
That's true. Yep. It's fun to sit and expound on and debate and talk about all this, but in 2 weeks we're going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least
it kind of reminds me of when I was in the Harry Potter fandom, and we had all the years long wait between books, and we would sit and theorize and agonize over all these lines and bits of dialogue. Then the book would come out; it was all meaningless.
Yeah. But it was sure fun in the moment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It really was, and that's what this hiatus time is for, is to theorize and speculate and.
Don't use the word
hiatus. Oh, sorry.
Twice that has been bad things, so don't say hiatus.
This break,
season break.
It's been a break, but break's not necessarily a good word, because that's more of a euphemism for.
We were on a break.
Yeah. It's like spring break. It was on summer vacation. Doctor Who was on summer vacation.
There you go.
It was on holiday.
Vacation.
Yeah,
it was on holiday. Went to Spain.
Spain.
Well, actually, no, it's in South Korea right now.
Yeah.
So, I found this article, and I won't go too much into it, but it's 32 things we learned at the Doctor Who world premiere of Deep Breath, and there are just a couple of little bullet points things. They're not spoilery.
Oh,
it was more from interviews.
Well, Rachel was saying how she's been avoiding things, and
I did read that. It's okay. So
I've been
you did read that? Okay.
Well, that was one of the ones when I saw that I thought maybe I'll stay away from that one. But go ahead.
No, it's mostly it's actually highlights from the Q&A sessions with Peter Capaldi, Jennifer Coleman, and Stephen Moffat. So these aren't spoilers.
Okay.
But one of them was now I can't find it. Oh, but this was one of my favorite things about it, and so I guess someone had asked Capaldi about his costume, and he actually said he wanted fans to be able to emulate the outfit without going to any great expense.
I did.
So he's actually. So I love it that he's thinking of cosplayers and how much money they're going to spend on trying to get just the right jacket and the shoes and everything.
I guess one could get a coat and put the red lining in themselves.
I thought about that, because I actually do have a black jacket that I'm like, I could just pin some red fabric in there, and I've got some black high heel boots and black dress pants. I could totally do a Femme 12.
I hear that though, and knowing Peter Capaldi the way I do, and it's not intimately because I don't know him that well, but just knowing the way he is, I wonder if part of that is said in tongue in cheek. You know what I mean? That maybe that was just a funny thing to say, and I hope he genuinely meant that, and I hope that he genuinely thought, I'd like to help the fans out and be able to make it simpler and more accessible. But then on the flip side of that, I can see him kind of saying, "That's a clever answer. I could say that," So I don't know.
Of course, sarcasm and snark doesn't translate into print.
That's true. That's certainly true.
But I just thought it was a cute little moment.
It is.
That was funny.
And Steve Moffat states not planning Doctor Who 10th anniversary to celebrate the 10 years since the show's return in 2005. So he went on to add, "unless I'm lying." So take that for what it's worth. Moffat lies, and he admits it.
Funny. Yeah, I think it's funny now that he's admitting that.
Oh, Moffat.
Yeah, there's just some really good little moments in in this. And so we'll put a link in there, and people can peruse it at their leisure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the comment that he made about the Sherlock Doctor Who crossover.
Yeah.
Because he's all for it, but everybody else are killjoys, including his wife and mother-in-law.
Now I think he's just trolling Tumblr.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Yep. Which Moffat likes to do, and honestly, the way Tumblr has treated him, he is entitled to troll them. I fully support this idea of him trolling Tumblr.
Yeah. So if you're
speaking of, I was just going to say, speaking of Moffat trolling Tumblr, there was another article, which really has nothing to do with Moffat trolling Tumblr. I just said that.
Good
Moffat
segue.
actually.
When is a segue not a segue?
Yeah.
When it's a Dalek.
Hey!
Oh! We've come full circle.
You set me up for that when I had to take it.
Yeah.
I got an answer because I didn't.
And now I'm visualizing a Dalek on a Segway speech.
Fan art.
No,
All of our any of our listeners who are fan artists.
It's a Dalek with a Segway handlebar sticking out of its head.
There you go.
Somebody standing in Davros' little wheelchair.
Do a Segway Dalek. We need fan art. Stat. Do it.
Oh darn! It still doesn't do stairs.
And no levitation option either.
Oh.
I wouldn't do it as easily, would it?
Yeah. It could off-road though if it had the off-road version. Oh my!
And then you'd have to get chains if they would encounter snow.
Oh, yeah. Four-wheel drive Dalek. I want to. While we're doing these variations.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was talking about. You're fine. That was awesome. Anyway, this comes from cultbox.co.uk. Stephen Moffat promises more online Doctor Who mini-episodes, and this is especially after the success of last year's Night of the Doctor with Paul McGann. In fact, Paul McGann is the front picture of this article, which I think is wonderful.
Oh, wait, how is he posed?
No, it's just an image from Night of the Doctor.
Oh, okay, good.
So yeah, it's a nice one.
It's not that silly emotional pose that he's doing.
No. It's yeah. Let's see, a quote from Moffat. He says, "I think we now have to accept that online stuff isn't a spin-off anymore. We used to treat it as a spin-off that maybe people would watch. Then you suddenly realize something like Pond Life, which we took much more seriously, had an audience of over 6 million. So he's saying, so we might get more stuff like Pond Life and the Doctor." He says, actually think Doctor is one of the best ones we've done. I don't prove by being 45 minutes long. What more storytelling do we need? Arguably, obviously, the problem with the regeneration show is everybody is just waiting for the bit where he dies and regenerates, so why don't we do just that bit? Which he has a point, because, it's the Christmas special, everyone's like, okay, now is he going to regenerate? Now is he going to regenerate? Now is he going to regenerate? And that's the big, and then it's, 5 minutes at the end, sort of a thing. Mm-hmm. So that...
If you remember they released Night of the Doctor, he kind of teased the idea of, this is a great way to do some neat little short stuff and make it secret again. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not surprising.
Yeah, and it's sort of reminiscent of like the Marvel one-shots that they do where, maybe this character doesn't warrant an entire movie, but we could do this little short mini episode and put it on the DVD or online or whatever, and people will love it, and we can still tell a good story, and maybe eventually it warrants a full-on TV series like Agent Carter.
I'm glad to see them taking online.
Online episodes will have more 8th Doctor stuff.
Well, they
might.
That's certainly an avenue to do it, too.
You're talking about how these will be essentially short episodes of Doctor Who, like 10 minutes or whatever.
I'd be
I'd
all
love to
for
see
it.
them taking the online more seriously. It's interesting that we've come around because, I don't know, you guys may have all, in fact, even Keith may be all too new to the series to remember that I think it was alongside Series 1 when they launched it in 2005, and it might have even been Series 2 or continuing in Series 2. They did these little webisodes, they called. Now, Moffat's talking about something more substantial, but they did these little webisodes online that took place in between the shows, and they were often content that sort of tied in, but wasn't directly into the show, but it was stuff that tied in, and they used that as a marketing tool, and I think it was a wonderful idea, and I'd like to see them come revisit that again.
Well, it's kind of like the
artists.
I don't think they had the same idea, just found it.
Yeah. Your mention of that, Chrissy, though, reminded me of another piece of news that we did get is we will be getting a Christmas special this year.
Oh yeah.
So
we
can look forward to that. So we'll get a full season with no break in the middle, Christmas. And then we'll also get a Christmas special this year. So
yay!
Can I just say I'm so happy they're not it's just going to be one straight through
season.
You know, with no break. Because when I came on, Series 5 was just wrapping up. The next was Series 6, and that one was the first one they had a break. And Series 7 had the break, and I'm like, I don't want a break anymore. I just want all, the whole 3 months of Doctor Who all the way through. Because you'd get all excited, and you'd get into the swing of things, and then it'd be over. And you have to wait, 7 or 8 months for the next.
Well, the one good thing that I think the break had going for it was by putting the break in the middle of the series, it certainly didn't have these marathon waits between series, because we did that all through Series 4, 5, and then 6 they did that break, and it felt like Doctor Who sort of tried to come back sooner, but I think that was also the year that we got an even longer wait because they waited to do it in the spring. And so, but I think that the concept of that is good because you can set up those breaks and kind of narrow that wait between, but then on the flip side of that, I'd rather just have it all there at one time.
Yeah. Well, with Series 6, it felt like you had the whole through line with Amy's baby and the silence and things. But with Series 7, it felt like it was really two different seasons because the first 5 episodes were saying goodbye to Amy and Rory, and then you had that big break, and then you started with Clara, or you had Christmas, and then you had with Clara and gearing up for the 50th anniversary. And that kind of thing. So it felt like it was two separate seasons, even though it was all the same season.
Certainly.
What do you guys think of I've heard of this idea about that the pawns should have just not come back after the end of Series 6, and then started Series 7 completely fresh. Like, not had these 5 episodes of, the pawns are leaving, and just... I think the way they did it
with... I don't think where they left Amy and Rory at the end of Series 6 was a good place to leave them.
Yeah, it was a good place for them to leave. They were living their own life, but the Doctor could technically still see them if he wanted to. Not that he would, probably. But they were living their life in their own time. They could... most of the other, a lot of other companions who ended up leaving, they end up living in their own time period.
So it wasn't like a dramatic leaving sort of thing.
Well, because
sort of like the way
how they ended in God Complex was pretty dramatic, and then it's like the whole thing of where's it going to end? Me standing over your graves, and then.
That's exactly where it ended.
That is exactly where. Yeah. So why not just leave it where essentially at the end of the God Complex, and then just start Series 7 New Companion?
Because I think a lot of fans weren't ready to say goodbye to Amy and Rory, and I think I think even the production crew wasn't ready.
Yeah, we'll tell that
Moffat
to all the
obviously
classic
wasn't ready.
companions who got shortchanged with their leaving.
Well, that's a good point, Michelle.
At least
and
with Amy
that
and Rory,
certainly
there
was
was a
done back
clear,
then.
definitive
Cutoff point. Yeah.
Yeah, the doctor was like,
I think the way
I'm going to leave you so where you're relatively safe,
Yeah.
and go off and
I think
do my own thing, kind of thing.
I can see where you're coming from, Michelle, on that. But the other thing on that is the beginning of Series 7 was Asylum of the Daleks, and I think a big thing they were playing up with that, especially with the mystery of Clara, is that, you know, Clara was introduced, we didn't know this at the time, in the beginning of Series 7, and we'd all been told that Jenna Coleman was coming in at Christmas, but then all of a sudden, here she is, and so it kind of sets up this whole mystery. So, and I don't know, maybe the Doctor could have been like,
well, it
could have had that mystery without Amy and Rory there, but it was sort of a head fake to the fans in the, you know, the twisty turny storytelling. So,
well,
I mean, I think the way it ended.
Well,
that's certainly how it played out, but I think what Michelle's saying is that they didn't have to do that.
Clara.
They could have simply picked up a new story at that point on.
A picture up, like,
I guess you could have had more time with.
If Asylum of the Daleks had gone differently, somehow she maybe could have come with him at the end of that instead of sacrificing herself or something.
Yeah. Or they could have had another episode where, oh, here's this mysterious girl again, although maybe that would have gotten old over 5 episodes or something. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Yeah, I see the theory you're posing there, Michelle, and I think it's an interesting one. It's a good one to talk about. I think what it boils down to is it comes to the fact that Moffat had plotted something out, and that's how he plotted it out. So that's what we ended up with.
And it could even have been like contracts and stuff like that they had to.
I think that's what happens. That's what happens if you compare it to the classic series, because when we look at it from the point that the companions kind of got a short shrift, and it's true, they really did in story-wise, but when you look at everything that goes on behind the scenes, it certainly had to do with contract links with other projects that they were working on and things like that. So it was kind of the nature of television in the day, and that's kind of how it worked. And so if we are able to step outside of the story of, you know, of Doctor Who being a story, and we look at it that way, it's certainly a different dichotomy than it is even now and how they do contracts and storytelling and things like that to this day. So, but it's an interesting theory, Michelle. You're right. I think it could have easily been done differently. Obviously, Moffat chose to go one direction.
Yeah.
I suppose it underscores that the Doctor, especially the 11th Doctor, he had this thing about not letting anybody go. Because, like, the Pawns, they were living their life, and that's why I think the episode Power of 3 is just so good, is that it shows, like, you know, they're living their normal life, but then the Doctor shows up and says, hey, let's go on an adventure, and they're like, sure, adventure, and then they realize, I don't know if I want to have any more adventures, but then the Doctor shows up and says, let's go have some fun.
Okay,
let's go. Well, okay, yeah, we'll quit after this one, and they just they're addicted to it. It seems like almost.
The Doctor is a hard drug to give up.
Yeah.
Indeed.
That is it.
And then they finally are forced to give it up.
Yeah.
In a way.
Cold turkey. It's interesting to. When you bring that up and you compare Classic Who to New Who, is you had companions, a few companions leave of their own volition, whether they actually genuinely wanted to or not. You know, Sarah Jane left and then got left behind, which, you know, compare that to the Pawns leaving, you know, it was a clean break. It wasn't a happy break, but it was a clean break. And since the Doctor knew he couldn't see them again, and they knew that he couldn't see them again, it was okay, I'll just remember our time fondly with the Doctor, and we'll live our lives in this new time period. Unlike Sarah Jane, who, you know, left because she wanted to. Well, I don't think she really wanted to, but she felt like she needed to. And, you know, that last bit there is like, don't you forget me, Doctor. And he's like, oh, don't you forget me, Sarah Jane. And then he does forget her. She doesn't see him again. You know, if you don't, I guess if you count the 5 doctors, you know, she does see him, but she doesn't see that. She doesn't see that doctor. And then if you don't count dimensions in time.
Not to mention the 5th Doctor, who would have been the future progression of her Doctor.
Yeah.
The 5th Doctor was quite tied up and all the time away from Sarah Jane. So I get aggravated with these people that complain that in, you know, school reunion, she's, you know, lamenting the fact that, you know, he didn't remember and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then it's the case. But she had like less than 2 minutes with the Doctor in that story, because by the end, when they're all getting ready to leave, I'm not sure she even connects the fact that until the very end that, oh, this is the 5th incarnation, and goodbye, you know. So that I don't think you can count that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But it seems like it seems like with new series, when a companion leaves, that they try to write it in a way where it's a clean break.
Yeah.
That they don't need to revisit that companion later.
Yeah. Well, and especially
very messy clean break and then Donna.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like following RTD, I think it was very important to have a very clean break, because there wasn't one with Rose, even though it seemed like it at the time. There wasn't one with Martha at all. She came back.
Yeah.
Everybody came back so frequently. I think Moffat wanted to be, okay, we're done with these characters now.
Yeah.
And then he still sneak him in. Anyways, they still sneak him in. You got Billy Piper back as the moment, and you get the vision, I guess, or however you want to interpret it, of Amy right before he regenerates in Time of the Doctors. They still sneak him in, but yeah, it's a clean break.
All their little cameos.
Yeah, that's the best you want to call it. So I'm sure we'll probably go through the same thing whenever Jenna decides to leave. Which I
hope isn't for a while.
Yeah, I like her.
Well, I hope she at least gets us through Series 8, because I think somebody alluded to this before, that she's kind of the safety net for us as far as transitioning into a new Doctor. She's kind of the safety net for us. She's the familiar. She's who we're going. You know, we feel safe because at least there's one familiar face on this journey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope she does stay on longer, though. I really don't want a situation similar to, you know, we switch from Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant, and you had Billy Piper as the bridge, and then Billy leaves.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And one thing I found really jarring when I was going through my first watching of Doctor Who, like I said, I came on when Series 5 was just ending. And when I went from the David Tennant specials to Series 5, it was just so, because up to then it had just been a real natural progression through the RTD era. And then you go from RTD to Moffat and everything just changes. And it's like, you know, even, you know, the theme tune changes, the music in the episode changes, the Doctor changes, there is no carryover, or, you know, very little carryover. And it kind of felt weird to me because I wasn't used to it yet. And so, I mean, and I appreciate that they had to do it that way, and it actually turned out really well, really good. And, you know, 11th Hour is one of the best episodes that New Who has given us. But I like having a little bit of continuity between the eras.
It just makes the transition easier.
Mm-hmm.
It does. It really does. And it's just kind of nice to feel like, okay, I'm still watching the same show, even though a lot of things, major things have changed.
Let me ask, because I forget, and I know everybody has said how they've come to, when they came to Doctor Who at one time, but let me make a quick question here. Has everybody here started Doctor Who at or after Series 5?
I started after, because I started after Matt Smith's first Christmas special. I got Series 1 at a Boxing Day sale, in 2010.
Yeah, I started I think as series 6 was on the air. But it may have been close to 6 being the end, because I remember I was trying to mainline from the reboot up until where it was on TV. And I think by the time I got to it and had finished watching everything, the first half of season 7 was done. Because I would think I was in like 5, watching 5 or 6, and seeing people post on Facebook, "Oh, dinosaurs are lamenting about the ponds leaving," and I'm like, I'm not there yet. But then I find
social media can be a bear. When
it can be, and I was
TV show.
Yeah, so
the first 5 seasons in the first few months of 2011.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I was caught up on the show, on the new series, by the time I watched Impossible Astronaut.
Yeah, so I wasn't
Oma's
there yet.
House for when we were at my Oma's for Easter in Goderich, so because we didn't have Space Channel back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking because it seems interesting, because this is maybe, to me, this is kind of, because everybody's kind of, even though you've gone back and you've watched the new series from series 1, and even a lot of us have gone back and watched classic. I think everybody here has gone back and watched classic series. But I think it's interesting.
All of the classic series, even
there you go.
Wow.
I got some catching up to do, man.
So, but see,
in 2012, I made a decision. I was going to watch everything in order from Unearthly Child up to whatever the latest episode was when I finished. So,
wow.
That is dedication, man. That is dedication.
But I think the reason I bring that up is because I kind of look at this as perspective. When you guys are talking about, this is your first regeneration to a new Doctor, brand new, because everybody was introduced with Matt Smith, so you already kind of had an onboard that was a starting point. And even though you've gone back and watched these, and I kind of come to it a different perspective, because I've been through this several times. Because I've been through this literally with 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 7 kind of yes and no, because I didn't watch a lot of 7 back in the day. But 8 to 9, 9 to 10. So I kind of look at it from a different perspective, and I'm sitting back thinking, that's kind of interesting.
You will watch
everybody's first
7 to 8 in order, because
well, that's true, yeah, because the movie, it's the
TV, right? So you didn't watch 6 to 7, but you did watch 7 to 8.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's interesting to see how everybody's kind of perspective is a little different. That this is everybody's first real new incoming Doctor, and to me, it's kind of, this is just the next one in line. So I was just thought that
you're kind of like. You're kind of like the wise old Papa Bear to all us.
Well, yeah.
I think I came in to New Who right when series 4 was going to start, so I had to catch up with 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. So, but you have been. So you're the first one then that has come in. That came in on Tennant, and so you got that new. You got that. You got what these guys are getting now with the. Series 5 on. You got kind of that from 4 to 5 that everybody here getting from series 7 to 8. So okay. So there is a different perspective there.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought that up. I just thought I was fascinated by the fact that, and I think it goes back to when you guys were talking about how the unsurety is there, and maybe that's what it is because the unsurety is there because of the fact that this is the first time you guys are experiencing a brand new Doctor, because everything else has kind of come, through going back and catching up. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting to hear that perspective, because I think, that I had really never thought of that way. And I think the best that I can kind of come from is when I remember when the series rebooted or restarted in 2005 with series 1, and I remember that's probably the first time I noticed the how different is this going to be? What is this Doctor going to be like? What's this going to bring to the series? Because especially since it had already started airing in the UK, over here I was already seeing bits and pieces online of pictures and things, and so I was at least getting that. But I kept thinking, as I was waiting for it to air here on Sci-Fi, I kept thinking, there was that mystery of what's this new Doctor going to be like? What's this new series going to be like? Because the only thing modern we'd had in the past was obviously the movie, which is kind of that bridge, and it was certainly different than the classic series was as well.
Yeah. So, like, up to this point, we've all kind of had a little bit of hand-holding from online or other fans who've introduced it to us, but now we're all in the same boat, and we're like, okay, we don't know how this is all going to work, and we can't really look to the veteran fans and be like, hey, how's this guy going to be? And you're all like, I don't know. We're finding out the same as you.
Exactly, that's exactly right. It's the first time we're all in the same boat.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plans out. Yeah, a very big boat.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that
gathering the worldwide tour. Yeah, don't jinx us with that. But yeah, I love looking at the pictures of the worldwide tour, and I was just on Facebook, just kind of glancing through a few of them. Just how many people are showing up this thing, and just I don't know. Like I hear stories of fans who've been fans for years and years and years, and like, oh yeah, I was a kid and I was teased for liking it. And I can understand being teased for liking something that's a little more off the wall. Even if it isn't specifically Doctor Who. And it's just, but just to see how popular it is and how big it is, it's like I kind of feel like a part of that legacy and a part of that, even though I have come to Doctor Who so relatively recently. So I don't know, I get a thrill about that kind of thing. I don't know if the rest of you guys do, if we want to just talk about the tour in general a little bit. We already have, more or less.
I haven't really seen much of anything from it. Of course, I've been working the overnight shift this past week, so whenever anything's going on,
that's perfect when they're like in Australia or whatever. That's going on right when you're working.
Stuff I'm busy working, so I can't look.
He's not only has he been working, he's been training somebody as well, so that kind of takes double your time.
So I feel like I've been very much out of the loop with the Who news recently.
It's I think for other than the occasional clips that the BBC has been releasing from the show, I think a lot of it has just been, Peter and Jenna and Moffat, if he's been with them, greeting fans and showing pictures of fans cosplaying and interviews with various news media.
Was there too?
Huh?
Yeah, he was at the either London or Cardiff one.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I saw him.
He was there. And that's an interesting thing because we're getting another not companion, but yes, a companion.
Yeah. Could be companion.
A new character.
Reoccurring
a new character.
Yeah.
Reoccurring
character.
Yeah. Well, I did hear. I think I heard something about he and Clara are dating or something. I don't know if it's true or what. I don't even remember where I heard it.
No, Michelle, I think you're right. I think I read that somewhere too.
I know they both.
Article.
I know they both teach at Coal Hill School, so could this be Ian and Barbara Redux? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
How cool would that be to get him back just for just one scene at Coal Hill?
You're talking about Ian?
William Russell.
Totally
William Russell.
That would just be, oh my gosh, yes. I did hear that they wanted to get him in for
It was either Glenn or Sean that mentioned that they didn't want to see it because of that line from Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, that was me. But Chrissy set me straight a week later.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I did hear a rumor that they were going to try to get William Russell in the 50th, but they couldn't get schedules to work out, just in that first little scene.
What on earth is he doing? He's like 90-some years old. He can't be doing... I mean... We couldn't get him out of the home
He's
that
still
day.
doing...
Did he have canasta or shovelboard that afternoon?
I think he's still doing some Big Finish stuff, too.
He's still doing a lot of Big Finish stuff, and he recorded the audiobook for Unearthly Child for Audio Go last year.
Yeah. But I'm sure if Moffat would have called up Nicholas Briggs at Big Finish, they would have let him go do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He is certainly an ambassador for Doctor Who, and he's done a lot of stuff. And as a matter of fact, he was able to do that little part in Adventure in Time and Space. So that was really cool.
Yep. And he was in Light at the End, too. He played the first Doctor.
That's right.
Yep.
Which is Big Finish, but yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I think that, I guess we'll see where they go as far as Clara having a life outside of the TARDIS, and whether dating is going to be part of it. I guess that could be an interesting dynamic, because we had Amy and Rory, but they were an established relationship by the time the Doctor came along. They were engaged, and Amy literally had her wedding dress hanging there as she runs off with the Doctor. But to have a companion...
Well, they were already dating the first time he came back 2 years before that.
Yeah, that too. And, Rose had Mickey, but to have a companion, potentially have a romantic interest brand new could make for an interesting dynamic.
To start dating someone after they started traveling with the Doctor.
Yeah.
Because we haven't really had that.
Wouldn't it be interesting if they ever got an off-world companion that isn't from Earth, and they started dating they started having a relationship with the not human or not Earthling companion, or at least a friendship or something.
Yeah.
Of course, we have to get a non-Earth companion first.
We've had companions, Earth and not Earthling, be friends. I mean, because Adric was not an Earthling, and neither was Turlo.
I'm talking about the new series.
So.
Well, as I say, in the classic series, we dropped Leela off on Gallifrey so that she could stay with the guy she fell in love with. So.
Andred.
Yes.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I know what you mean in new series, but it's
going back to what Michelle was talking about. That I think it's kind of interesting, and Rachel touched on this as well. I think it could be an interesting opposite of what happened with Rose, because we had Rose who was dating Mickey and essentially left Mickey for the Doctor, and then in the Matt Smith era, we had Amy and Rory, who Amy basically brought Rory along. And then in this one, it could be kind of an opposite scenario where we have Clara, who's already established and traveling with the Doctor, fall in love with somebody, and that potentially could be the reason she leaves the Doctor. So it kind of is an opposite of what we had with Rose and Mickey. Could be.
Yeah?
Could be.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Could definitely do it.
It'd almost be really funny if he meets whoever Danny Pink is playing, and they hit it off so well that he just invites him along, and it's kind of like the reverse of Mickey, where he was begrudgingly lets him on the TARDIS, where with this dude he just was like, yes, come.
Yeah, come along.
And gets along better with him than...
Mickey was Rose's pet, basically, on the TARDIS.
Yeah.
I let you keep Mickey.
12 and this new guy get along better with 12 and Tara.
I think we sort of had that with Rory, though, because you could tell that although that was more of I've got to bring the boyfriend on so that the girlfriend quits hitting on me.
Yeah.
But, yeah, exactly. We got to rescue this.
You guys are getting married, and now that I realize it, now that you said that, Glenn, I'm like, isn't that what he did in Asylum of the Daleks, and they were getting a divorce, and the Doctor?
Oh, that's right. He had to fix the.
He's got to fix. What's wrong with Amy and Rory? I've got to fix this.
And
eventually he does, as well as blow up the Dalek asylum.
Yes.
That's what the Doctor does. He fixes things.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps relationships, apparently.
Well, does anyone have any final thoughts, comments, speculations?
I have some final thoughts, and it's not necessarily on Doctor Who. It's on this podcast. And I want to reiterate that I think you ladies are doing a fantastic job. I am so happy that you guys have got this off the ground and that you guys have tackled this, because I think you guys are speaking voices to a number of fans that aren't always represented. And I love the idea that you guys' podcast is very widespread across different genres of fantasy and science fiction and all different things. And I want to commend you ladies, and I'm glad to be a very, very minor, small part of the reason you all got together and became such good friends and was able to do this. And I want to congratulate you on 10 episodes, and here's to 110 more.
Aww, that was sweet of you, Glenn. And you sell yourself short. You guys were a huge part of us becoming friends and getting this going. So thank you for your support and all the fun that we have with you guys' podcast. In fact, you guys want to
keep writing in.
Will do. You guys, we need people to start writing in ours. But while you guys are here, do you want to plug your stuff while you're?
Go ahead, Keith.
Oh yeah, you can find us at travelingthevortex.com. It's pretty much everything you need to know is right there. Podcast all about Doctor Who.
If you click on the feedback page, there's all the information you need.
And you can find our episodes, and we're also in iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, Google+. Do we have a Pinterest? I think we have a Pinterest.
We don't think we do.
We have a Tumblr.
We do have a Tumblr.
We have a Tumblr.
In fact, Shell runs Tumblr. We have a book club on Goodreads, which Chrissy's in charge of. That's what we do. Is we start the core, and then we just have everybody else administer everything else.
Yes.
Well, we're happy to help.
Another reminder that you brought it up. We're reading Lung Barrow this month, so jump in on that if you feel so inclined.
I hope to get there eventually. Got so much on my plate.
Honestly, me too. I've had a lot on my plate lately. Summer reading is kicking my butt. But it's almost over, thank goodness.
Yeah, well, I'm still working I'm rereading Human Nature for Traveling the Vortex homework.
Oh yeah, I gotta do that too.
And sort of compiling a mental list of all the similarities, differences, like how it was adapted kind of thing. Because from what I remember, there's a lot more set the school in the book version than there was in the TV version.
Yeah.
But I'll try and write feedback when that comes and expand on that.
Well, we look forward to that. That'll be the episode after this next episode. So 2 episodes from now, we'll do that.
Yeah. And then
I just finished listening to Absolution for this week's.
Oh yes.
Because I listened to it like back in November in advance of the 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to refresh my memory on that.
Yeah, I need to get
I went on and listened to The Girl Who Never Was after listening to Absolution.
Yes.
Did you?
Oh, speaking of, because Sean was so insistent that Absolution was the last of the 8th Doctor and Charlie, but no, it's The Girl Who Never Was.
Yeah,
what did I say?
He did get back to me and
what?
And what did I say on that podcast? Did I not say hello? I was sitting there adamant that I remembered that there was more, or at least one more beyond that.
I was agreeing with you as I was listening to the podcast, and I kept thinking I got to write in and tell him that yes, Glenn is right, and I kept forgetting to do it because
you can't. You should not forget. You should never forget to write in and say that Glenn is right.
I was driving at the time. Usually I make a note of it, but if I was driving, I couldn't make a note.
More importantly is when you write in to say Sean is wrong.
Well,
poor guy is even here to defend
I tweeted
himself.
him about Absolution not being the last one, and he got back to me saying, "Yeah, I realized that after the cast this week, knew we were getting close."
Yeah, so it's The Girl Who Never Was. Then it gets into the Lucy Miller stuff, which I have all
and
as well.
There's also Six and Charlie stuff, which
Right.
I haven't even got to that yet, but yes,
which I've listened to recently to get ready for the Charlotte Pollard series, and the Six and Charlie stuff is really sad. It ends really sad.
Oh, tell us.
Spoilers.
Well,
Spoilers.
The way it ends, it's sad. It's really sad how it ends, but it's necessary that it ends that way for reasons that I
that you're not going to get into right now.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
And then the first series of Charlotte Pollard is spent getting her out of the situation that she was left in at the end of the Six and Charlie stuff.
Oh, cool.
Interesting.
Okay, something to look forward to.
Yep.
All right.
Eventually.
Well,
is Traveling the Vortex are you gonna do the Six and Charlie stuff in between 8 and Lucy Miller, or like are we gonna do that like when?
I wish I could answer that question, Michelle, but Sean,
if Sean had bothered to show up,
tweet him about it.
Yeah.
Tweet him about it.
Well, maybe you can bring it up on Traveling the Vortex this week.
Okay.
It'll probably happen is it will probably fall in line with the other 6 stuff. So instead of jumping forward in 6's line, we'll probably keep with his episodes and get there eventually on that path.
Yeah.
We're still in thick and deep with Evelyn, which I am not complaining about. I love Evelyn. So anyway,
That's about our
Well, here I'll give out where you can find all of our stuff for the 5-ish Fangirls. Our website is the 5-ish Fangirls podcast.blogspot.com, and similar to Traveling the Vortex, you can find all of our contact info there: Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, contact page, YouTube, download links. So yeah, it's all there. Go there, and we want to hear feedback from people. I know I have some people. Actually, I have a few friends from college who are saying, "Hey, you're on a podcast. That's neat." I'm like, "Yes, it is. You can send in feedback. You know that, right?" So, anyway, if you guys are still listening, please say hi. I'm not badgering you at all. Trust me.
And also don't forget that we do have our Patreon page where you can become a subscriber to help us out, and the guys at Traveling the Vortex now have a Patreon page as well. So if you have a few dollars to spare each month for either of us, that would be fantastic. I think at this point the guys at the Vortex need it more than we do, because they do have an established website that apparently is on the most shakiest server in the entire universe. Apparently, apparently the gerbils keep running out of gas, or what?
Only the last month and a half. So it's been relatively solid through the course of this podcast, with the exception of last month. So
the gerbils can't keep up.
Need to get more cheese for the gerbils.
Our server needs to regenerate. Let's put it that way.
All right, we'll couch it in those terms, definitely.
We'll put links. We'll put links to all of that in the show notes for everybody. So.
Yes, definitely check the show notes for all of the good stuff, and also for all of the links that we've discussed here.
Yep.
Because there were a lot.
Yes. So.
It'll be great.
Yeah. So this has been fun. I'm glad at least two of you could make it. So we'll definitely do this again.
Well,
and hopefully Sean can make it next time.
Thanks for rearranging your schedules to come do this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's our pleasure.
Yes.
You guys were very good guests.
So I think with that, we will sign off for this week. Now, if our guests of honors, if you want to say goodbye first, feel free.
We're supposed to start because we go backwards now, don't we? See, we're not used to this.
You guys have your routine.
We have a system.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
This is Keith saying, be seeing you.
Oh, I didn't use my catchphrase.
Do it now, Glenn.
Cheers.
Okay, we don't have...
Somebody want to pretend to be Sean?
No, I can't.
Wait, what is Sean's
I can't
catchphrase?
remember. 188 episodes, and I can't remember what he said.
Just good night.
Oh, yeah.
He does say good night.
Oh, yeah. Like someone says goodnight.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go around and... Yeah.
Yep.
And we'll go around and do our good nights.
We can remember who we are.
It's a little bit late and I am a little loopy.
Welcome to our world, guys. Did we lose Brittany? I hope we didn't lose
It
Brittany.
has been quiet for a while.
Brittany has been quiet for a while. Brittany says good night from Taos, I'm sure.
She's
so.
spinning off into the
sure
vortex.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, this is Chrissy from Salt Lake City saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
Michelle from Kitchener, Ontario saying good night.
This is Rachel from Indianapolis, Indiana. Good night, everyone. You have been listening to the 5-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.